Okay, everybody, we're going to go through a quick tutorial for how to use the JS9 software, web-based software, in order to do the image analysis for the mountains on the moon. First thing we're going to do is load up the web page for JS9, and you just type in, oops, that is wrong program there. There we go. js9.si.edu, and there's a link in the instructions. And you get this screen here. Now, what this picture on the left is a default image that they load up, which is just a supernova remnant we'll get to later on in the course. We're not going to be using that one ourselves. On the left-hand side here, you see the image display, a toolbar, and above that a menu bar, along with coordinates and some things here. On the right-hand side, you've got the help menus. In fact, there's an actual help menu as well as an introduction and a little bit of tutorial. Help is there. And let's start off with an actual image we're going to be using. We're going to use the File menu. Go to File, Open Local. That means it's going to be opening it on your from your computer. So that means you already have to have the images downloaded and into a folder on your computer. I'm going to use Mons Piton, the first one on the list. Now keep in mind that the picture that I'm loading up may be scaled differently from the one that I give you, so you don't have to expect the numbers that I show to come out exactly for you. All right, there's a picture right there. Now, let's take a look at the toolbar, because you are going to be using that. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items on the toolbar are what we call, are for creating what we call regions, and we're going to be using those. A region is just a shape that's drawn onto the picture, and you can resize it, scale it, move it around, and there are different things that can be done with regions. Anything from measuring sizes, which is what we'll do in this lab, to measuring the brightness of something, which we'll do in much later labs. You can even add text. I guess that's a 7th region type there. Zoom in, zoom out. It's by a factor of 2 each time. Zoom to the native magnification, which is what it is right now. Let's see, if I zoom way out like that, and I hit 1, it zooms into there. And this last one is zoom to fit. If I click on that, it makes sure that the entire picture fits into the window. I will note that if you go down to the lower right corner, those 2 little lines there, if you click and drag those, it allows you to resize the image display window, and now I can fit the whole thing and have it still be larger. All right, let's take a look at what the basic controls are. Now, if you've taken a look at the tutorial, the broad overview of JS9, you will have seen about the ability to click and drag to change the brightness and contrast. In this particular lab, we're using just plain old JPEG images, and we can't do that with it. So if you do a click and drag, for Mac folks, it's click and drag. For Windows, it's a left click and drag. Nothing happens, and I'm trying that right now without success. On the other hand, one thing we can and will do is to move the image around. So let's say I've zoomed in a bit, and I want to see a different part of the picture. If you are on a Mac, well, let's see here. Actually, if you're on Windows, then if you want to pan around, you're going to do a right click and drag. If you're on a Mac, you might have to set it up first. So I'm going to show you that. Go to the Apple menu, System Settings, scroll down to, if you're on a laptop, you're going to scroll down to Trackpad. If you've got a mouse plugged in, it might be a mouse menu. And then look over here to, let's see here, the secondary click option, and you select whatever one you want, but I've got it set to click with 2 fingers. And again, if you're using a mouse, go to the mouse menu and you'll have some options there, but secondary click. All right, so if we want to pan, to move the view around, then I'm going to do that, click with 2 fingers and drag, and there we go, like that. And again, if you're on a Windows computer, then a right click and drag will do it. All right, let's go back to full size. I'll also note, because you're going to be doing more than one of these, that once you have loaded an image up, if you go to File, you'll have a list of images here, and you can switch between them. That casa.fits, that supernova picture, is already in there. It's still there and available. Again, we're not going to use it. monspiton.jpg is the one that we're using here. And if you load up another one, open local, let's go to monspico, there. Now we see we have several, and we can just switch between them on the fly. Okay, now other things that we're going to need. We're going to be measuring the scale, the length of shadows, the distance of a mountain from the shadow of the moon's surface, called the terminator line. All of those things we're going to be using regions for. The first thing we need to do in going through this is to make a map scale. So if you take open your manual and you look at the instructions for doing the map scale, okay, we're going to use this crater here. This crater has a known radius. I think this one is 55 kilometers. And we're going to find out how many pixels across it is. So you go to the third icon over on the toolbar, click on that. That's the circular region tool. Now, when I mouse over it, you see that the cursor turns into this 4-way arrow, meaning if I click on it, click to select, whenever you see that 4-way arrow, that means if you click, or on a PC, left click, and drag, it will recenter where it is. The other thing, you see these blue dots, those are to allow you to resize it. When you put your cursor over a blue dot, it turns into an arrow pointing in a direction that you can slide it in or out like that. Of course, since this is a circle, then it doesn't matter which one you click on, they'll all do exactly the same thing. This top one here is a rotation, allows you to click and turn it around, but again, because it's a circle, it doesn't matter. It all looks the same. So let's recenter it over the crater here. What we want to do is to resize it until the green circle is exactly on the outer edges. So let's zoom in a bit here. Oh, I don't know why I brought up those controls there. Okay, notice that the crater goes a little bit off the picture, but that's all right. Now, notice the crater is an oval, an elliptical shape. Presumably, the crater is really more or less a perfect circle. That's true for most craters on the moon. But because we're viewing it from a bit of an angle, it's not facing straight towards us, it's going to be foreshortened by a bit. However, when you take a circle and you tilt it away from you in any direction, one dimension of the circle will always show the true radius, the true diameter. And so all we need to do is to make sure that one rim touches, one edge of the circle touches one rim, and the other edge touches exactly the other opposite side. Okay, I'm gonna, of course, it's adjusting both left and right sides of the circle whenever I resize it, so I've really got to keep readjusting there. In this case, I think that's reasonable there. Notice that, yes, it's a little bit shorter on the vertical, top-bottom direction there, as we expect. Now, if you have selected a region, double-click on it, and you get the Edit Region menu that pops up. The only thing we care about this is the second line where it says Edit. Now, we're not actually going to edit there. The first number is the X coordinate for the center of the region. So pixel number 256.5. The second number is the Y coordinate, that's up and down, so it goes up. The center is 689.2 above the bottom. Only one we care about is the third number, which is the radius. Okay, so that's 66.7659 pixels wide. We can round that off to the nearest tenth of a pixel. That'd be 66.8 there. Now, this is the radius. We're going to multiply that by 2 to get the diameter, as you see in your instructions. And from there, we're going to write that number down and go through the math there. Okay, now we can close this little floating menu. We can move it around like that. We can close it there, and we're done with that step. Another thing we're going to need to do, let's go back to full size. Oh, let's recenter there. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to find the length of the shadow. Here is Mount Piton, Mons Piton in Latin. Here you can see the peak above my cursor, and the tip of the shadow is right there. So we're going to measure the length of that using the line region. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th icon. When I click on it, a line comes up at a 45-degree angle just by default. Now, the line region is a little trickier to manipulate because, well, if I click on it, you see that it puts it in a bounding box. Now, if I've got the four-way arrow cursor over it, that means I can adjust the position. If I were to grab onto one of the blue adjustment dots in the center of a side, it allows you to stretch along that dimension. If I do this one, it stretches it that way or compresses it. If I do a corner one, it scales the entire thing. All right? And if I do this one up here, it allows me to rotate. On the other hand, now look, this is tricky here, but where you've got the ends of the green line, if you get over the blue dot, which is a little farther out from the end of the green line, you can scale it. But if you go just slightly inward from that, notice that the cursor turns into the finger, the hand. When you have that icon for the cursor, you click and drag there, and you can move that end freely. All right, so I'm going to place that right at the tip of the mountain there, and then I'm going to go over here, and again, this is a little tricky because you've got to go just slightly inward, click on the other end, and I'm going to find the corresponding tip of the shadow right there. Okay, now we select it, double click it, we get the Edit Region menu coming up. Again, we only care about the edit line, second one down. In this case, the first two numbers mean the same thing. They are the X, that's the horizontal, and the Y, the vertical, coordinates for the center of the line. What we care about is the third number, which is the length of the line in pixels. By the way, the fourth one is a rotational angle in degrees there. We're not going to use that. Okay, so again, we'll round it to the nearest tenth of a pixel. That is 83.8 in this particular case. It might not be in yours. And we will write that number down. Okay, so I can close that out. Now, I'll note something here. You can sometimes get yourself in a little bit of trouble if you wind up making this a little real skinny like that there. Now, let's see if it'll go away there. Okay. Now when I click it again, it can be tough to widen that box out enough so that you can actually grab onto the end and resize it. It looks like I'm not having trouble this time. If I grab in the middle though, that opens that out more and it's easy to find the right dot that you need. Okay, and again, just checking that there, yeah. All right. If you really give up, select it. Oh, and you hit your delete key when it's selected, and that gets rid of it. And you can make another one then. Okay, and you'll be using that as well to find the distance from the tip of the mountain, the peak there, to the terminator. Now, the terminator finding that is the most difficult part of this lab. It is the edge of the shadow of the moon running across the entire face of the moon. It runs, in this case, from top to bottom. In other cases, it may be at a bit of an angle because of the curvature of the moon. But this is lined up pretty much north-south, although oddly enough, in this picture, north is at the bottom. So you're going to make a proposed line for where the terminator goes here. I'm going to make this thing be vertical. Okay, it's more or less vertical. And then you're going to kind of shift it left or right until you think it's correct here. And again, it's tough to tell where that is. That's a drawback in this technique, but we just live with it. All right, so assuming that you decided it was here, and look at the instructions to see how you make that decision. All right, we've got that there. Now we're going to make another region line. We're going to put one end at the peak of the mountain again, and we put the other end at the terminator. There we go. And we double click to find the length of it. And you're going to do that for 3 possible positions of the terminator. Try to make them reasonable, but one that may be a little on the short side, one a little on the long side, and the other that's just right, or at least your best guess. And then you'll resize this each time, trying to make it hit the terminator line at a perpendicular, and then getting the new measurement there. Okay, and that is that then. And then you go to your next image, and you'll do it again. In this case, you'll notice the terminator is kind of curving. It's not perfectly vertical here. It's curving a little bit from, well, let's see here. I haven't done this one before. This is a new one. But something like that there. Although, well, really, you know, here is Mons Pico here, where my cursor is. And you see the shadow going that way. So the terminator, yeah, this is something I should tell you. The terminator, you want to be just worry about where the terminator is at the closest point to the mountain. So you don't have to worry about it way up here where it's curving up and to the right. Okay. So maybe something a little more like that. Yeah, that seems reasonable. It's, again, the terminator is going to be, the shadow is going to be pointing straight to the terminator, just by the very nature of it. So that terminator should be maybe curving a little more like this here, something like that. Okay, and those are your instructions for how to use JS9.